I'm Scott L. Miller. It's the 27th of December, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Nicaragua. And today you're going to be watching this on the 3rd of January. This is where pretty much everyone is back to work who's going to be heading back to work. So we're in the middle of the week. We're getting into the swing of things. I believe it is now a Wednesday, if all my calculations are correct. Today we're going to be talking about what our 2023 was like and what we have coming up on the show and to look forward to in 2024. So we're going to get to all that right after the bump. So for all of you watching this in more or less real time, Happy New Year, more or less. It's the middle of the week and we're back to the beginning of 2024 and I'm doing my wrap up for 2023. We've never really done this before. The show is quite a bit different now than it was just a year ago. So to give a quick, for a lot of you, the majority of you joined us in the last year, which is super exciting. That means we've got some amazing growth going on. And so I want to give a little bit of a background and what to look forward to, because there's a lot of like foundational stuff about the show that's kind of missing for a lot of our viewers. Being a daily show, we're really different than pretty much anything else out there. Like what we do is significantly unique, and I really like that about the show. Both our audience is really unique, and of course the show itself is a bit different. In 2022 is really the year we got started on the show. Yeah, we got some episodes for those who are really, masochistic, I guess. Is that right? Sadistic? Want to go back and punish themselves with really old episodes? I'm losing my linguistic skills. You can go back to like 2019, 2020, even 2021 and watch the show. 2021 is actually not that bad. Prior to that, the show is pretty weak for the most part. Every now and then we'll have an episode that's kind of interesting, but really it was rough. It's kind of just learning the ropes and figuring out if there's even something that I wanted to do. 2021, I really wanted to do the show. I was really excited about it, but I was writing a book and we were moving to Nicaragua. So we had this incredible year of like reasons to do the show. Like we're moving to Nicaragua. COVID was wrapping up. There was all this stuff going on in life, and it was time for like this huge change for me, for the family. And recording that on the show would have been amazing, but we were so busy, and I had accepted a book deal, which I'm so happy about, and that was amazing. But 2021 was the year of my book, and I'd never written a full-scale published work before and worked with a full editing team and everything. So it was an all-new experience, and I had a lot of work that I had to do, a lot of learning curve. And so that took up a lot of my time, combined with the whole full-on permanent move to a new country with buying a new property. Like there were so many aspects of my life were changing and really busy in 2021, all good stuff, or nearly all. And so 2021 was very sporadic. There's some neat videos where you can see us kind of being amazed by the whole moving to Nicaragua experience, living on a beach, all kinds of things. And I talk a little bit about the book, but throughout 2021, the show was still very, very undiscovered and not very well published. So that's really on me. But if you go back and watch those episodes, even now, a lot of those episodes only have like 30 views. So very few people were watching. And it was around that time that I'm like, who's watching this show? And a few of my friends from high school popped up. But like it was starting to be amazing that there was anyone watching the show that I didn't know. And really, I only had like 80 to 100 subscribers in 2021. In 2022, right at the beginning of the year, we had an episode where we moved from the beach to here in Leon, and we had one earlier episode where we were looking for a house here in Leon, and those episodes suddenly did really well. Of course, they were very different than what I had done previously, which was just walking around the beach. Of course, the beach is popular, but you know, it was the same beach every day, so people were tired of it. It didn't draw in any more people. It just got however many people were going to watch it originally. When we moved to Leon, there was this whole hunting for a house, going to a city that's well known, and this whole experience of moving into the city and living downtown in La Barrio, in the barrio, was, I think, pretty interesting. And so really, right at that moment, we had a couple episodes that got some real attention. And that caught my attention that if we made things a little bit more polished and had a little bit more variety of material, that it would get some attention. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I should put in a little bit of effort, but it still wasn't like, oh, this is a big thing. But we moved up towards 200 subscribers, and that caught my eye. It was no longer just friends and family with the few odd people who had discovered it. It was actually people finding the show and finding it at least moderately interesting. So it was watching that happen over the course of a couple months at the beginning of 2022. And then in March of 2022, I did an episode where I went to Corinto and Chinandega, which is easy to find, and that one really exploded. For what the channel was, got more than 1,000 views, and suddenly the viewership topped 300 subscribers, which was enough to really draw my attention that, oh, we had discovered a formula, something that people were actually interested in, and maybe this is something I needed to focus on a little bit. So that's really our line in the sand. Somewhere between January and March of 2022 is when the show kind of actually began as we know it. I had started just before then to diligently try to do an episode every day. I started the scheduled thing, and that changed us a lot, but it was still just for the very few people that we had to get that word out there. Throughout 2022, we grew from roughly 200 viewers subscribers at the beginning of the year to just over 2,000 at the end of the year. So that was a tenfold increase, which of course is not going to be duplicated very often. But that was this amazing explosion of viewers and just so much going on. And then, so entering 2023, 2022 was really the proving ground. Yes, the show has interest. Yes, this is something that will make sense. At some point during 2022, the show became monetized. I believe that's right. And we started using Buy Me a Coffee so that people are able to sponsor the show by going there, much like Patreon, which is a very standard thing for the hardcore supporters of the show to be able to interact directly and really help promote the channel. So we added that, and that really started making the show makes sense, because it takes a lot of my time, and it certainly doesn't pay for itself, and it's not meant to, but it started really being able to at least pay for the majority of the cameras and equipment that I use, because I tripods and cameras and batteries and computer, it takes a lot. I explain this a lot, so I don't need to go into that, but it really started justifying itself. So I was able to go to my wife and be like, okay, look, it's no longer just this expensive hobby I have now. It clearly shows the ability to become a break-even hobby, which is a completely different thing. And so she's like, cool, this is a thing you like doing. It's okay using the money from the show on the show, of course. And so it's doing that. So that's really important. And so at the beginning of 2023, we had just over 2,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. During 2023, we grew from 2,000 to just an hour ago at the time I'm recording this, we crossed the 6,000 subscriber barrier. So that's roughly a tripling of the show during 2023. Of course, nothing compared to 2022, but we're at a much larger size now. So these are really amazing growth numbers, very organic, very happy with that. And thank you so much to everyone who's come and joined the show. We also passed the 1 million views for the year mark in 2023, which for big shows is nothing at all. But for a little tiny show like this, it's an amazing milestone to have crossed. To be able to say we have over 1 million views this year is really something. We also are ending up coming through the finish line at the end of the year, to the best of my knowledge, looking at what shows are out there and what's going on. We're actually sitting at #1 for English language shows that are vlogging here from Nicaragua. There is no show that we're aware of that has the number of views, and nothing that comes close in the number of viewing hours to the show. The shows that have similar views, none that I know of actually have as many, are mostly content that's very short, 1 to 2 minutes for their long content. Our average is much closer to 8 to 12 minutes of view time on longer episodes. So their view time has to be less than whatever their maximum show length is, just as ours is about a tenth to a quarter of the total show length. Theirs are probably much longer as a percentage, but ours are so long. We have such big episodes that getting those kinds of averages are huge. And so the view time is necessarily 4 to 20 times, probably much closer to 6 to 8, but somewhere between 4 and 20 times the view time of other channels that are working at a different pace. So these are some really incredible numbers. So for us to be this tiny show at the beginning of 2023, enough that we had some interest, people could find us, but we weren't anything particularly special at that time. And now to be in this position of, we're currently at the highest new viewer acquisition. Thank you so much. We have the highest views of anyone for the entire year. We have the longest view time by massive amounts, from what I can tell, by the end of the year. It just feels so good that there's been so much support from you guys to make this happen, because none of this is stuff I can do, right? This isn't like, oh, I went out and promoted it here and pushed it there, and I can't really do that, right? It's just the show is the show. and you guys are out there telling new people about it, hitting like, sharing it somewhere, whatever, talking about the show, recommending it. And I see so many places that I go and I see recommendations for the show. So it is you guys making all this possible, both from the growth, but also providing topics. And I mentioned this, but I'll mention it here. One, a thank you to everyone who has asked questions and given comments and gotten down and like gotten the community conversation going. And for those who are not aware that you can do that or don't know that you're encouraged to do so, please scroll down. Got questions about Nicaragua, about travel, Latin America, me, scroll down there, ask questions, right? Get involved. That's fantastic. I love it. That's how I get a lot of the material for the show. And some of our biggest material for the year has been people asking specific questions. I love that kind of content. It's really interesting, keeps us vibrant, and it allows me to have topics when I'm often struggling to know what to do for a day. For example, today I'm making a show about the show, so I don't have to come up with another topic for the show. It's kind of an excuse, but it's also the beginning of the year, so I can indulge myself a little bit. Thank you for everyone who lets me do that. So scroll down, ask your questions about all kinds of things. You can see what kind of content we do here on the show. For those who are really interested in my business stuff, I do business and technology consulting. Go over to my Sam IT channel, just SAMIT, here on YouTube, and you can ask there. I want to keep those separate. That is my tech training channel, but for people looking for currencies and Latin America, just all these things that we talked about here. Also, so coming up this year, what do we have going on? So, of course, there's a bunch of unknowns, as always, and things are always changing. We never know what's going to happen. Life in general is very dynamic in life. I think in Nicaragua, when you're a world traveling expat and doing really interesting things, like to us, it just feels like everyday life, but it seems interesting, at least, hopefully on the show. I think there's a very high level of dynamicism in our lives. And so during this year, we have very, very solid plans that my wife and I and kids are going to Disney World and Universal Studios. Probably the last time we will do anything like that, but my kids are at that age where we felt we really had to do it for the last time. So we're doing that trip to Florida coming up at the beginning of March. We're then going to New York to see my dad a little bit. He lives in Western New York, closer to Rochester. And then my wife and I have a number of commitments in Mexico immediately following that. My kids are going to stay in New York, and we are going to be in Mexico for a little bit, and going to be seeing East Coast Mexico and West Coast Mexico, which I've never been to. I've been to Central Mexico. So I'm excited to be filming in those locations and bringing you some locations with me, like Cancun, Isla Mujeres, and Mazatlan. Not places I would normally choose to go. Those are very vacation-y spots, but we're there for other purposes, and I will do my best to do some interesting filming there, explore the cities, and even my wife's like, okay, we built in some time so you can walk and really get to know some of these locations, so that should be really good. So we're going to be doing that for sure. That we've already booked our flights, we've already paid for the rooms, so we know that's going to be happening. Last year, I did the trip to Bolivia, and the year before that, in 2022, to Guatemala, which, you know, it's interesting for me when I go back and watch the Guatemala episodes. I'm like, wow, that was early 2022. When I filmed those, I worked really hard to do the show while I was there in Guatemala. And I'm like, I can't miss an episode. I can't miss a day. I can't miss an opportunity. We're here in a new country. We've got to get it. But looking back, it was like, wow, these are some of the earliest episodes that were really popular. We were still just getting the show under our feet. The sun has completely come out. We need to move the camera. In 2023, we managed to go to Bolivia. And by that point, the show is basically in the position that it is now. And that was great. And I got a lot of good feedback. We got a lot of new viewers from doing that. The original goal with the trip to Bolivia was that we were going to be heading as well down to much of South America, Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil, and doing like a road trip and doing a lot of exciting stuff. We got really busy with work and a lot of things happened. We weren't able to do that this year. The plan is to do that in 2024. But I don't know when, because this Mexico trip is so huge and taking so much time. I really can't look at additional travel until that is under our belts and done and we know what's going on. But for those who have paid attention to other episodes, and really, if you haven't, please go back and watch all my episodes. It helps me a lot. We did an episode where I talked about all of our travel cards and travel points and all that stuff that I'm working on. And that stuff is going to make it a lot easier and promote the idea of being able to go do more filming in South America and so forth this year. So I'm really hoping that through leveraging a number of those things, we're going to make it easier and easier for that to happen. And I'm sure we're looking at some good possibility. And with the growth here on the show, of course, the more you guys grow the show, the easier it is for me to make those kinds of things happen, because we don't have sponsorship. It is purely you guys watching the show and our Buy Me a Coffee sponsors who make everything possible. And like I said, I don't need everything covered, but it really helps pay for the cameras and stuff. And when we start traveling, that stuff gets really expensive really quickly. So even though we try to travel on a budget and we do all the point stuff, the more viewers we have, the easier it is to justify, for sure. We hope, and this is a really long shot at the moment because we're so busy with so many things, but traditionally we have moved around with our children quite a bit, and this year will be tough with all the things we have going on, but we are hoping to spend a little bit of time at least in South America with our kids, or possibly Europe, but almost certainly South America this year, probably in Colombia or possibly Argentina. We're going to see how that goes, but we've been talking about that, so we may have some block of time away, but we can only do so much because our dogs can't travel with us, and so having time with them is important. So we have to balance a lot of things between our travel and our pets and stuff, and just our lives here and our businesses, and I still have to work. But things have been really good. 2023 was an amazing year for us in many ways, and for the show and in our personal lives. So 2024 is looking very good. We have amazing new cameras that have already arrived. I have new lenses that are showing up today. The new camera for filming the show arrived yesterday to our holding spot in Miami. Where friends have it for us. So we know there's going to be a lot of new filming opportunity just because of new camera gear and equipment coming up in 2024. So that's one piece. We know we've got some travel on the books. We've got some plans that hopefully come to fruition on the books. And it's going to be an exciting year. I'm so glad that you guys are coming along for the ride. Those who are wondering, am I going to keep living in Nicaragua? That once in a while gets asked. Yes, this is our home. We're hoping that our residency process is very, very close. I do have to do extra work because of, believe it or not, this show, but shout out to all the people who are forced to watch this show every day to make sure that we're producing good content. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Remember, you get to hit like on the videos too. It makes it easier to track which ones you've watched. So that's an interesting process that should be very good, and hopefully we'll have a lot to share about actually being residents as opposed to just going through the process as we have been for the last several years here. And again, for those who follow along, you know that once we have our residency, our cars are able to cross the soft borders to the north, which gives us access to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala by car, and should, in theory, open up a lot of travel opportunities. Of course, we're able to drive to a lot of cities here in Nicaragua, and we rarely do because we're so busy. And at this point, we believe that we have been pretty sick with we know we've been sick with something. It's very likely to be COVID. We have had the announcement from Nicaraguan government that COVID is going around in the country and that the hospitals are seeing a very large uptick in the number of people. It's not terrible, but it's noticeable. And of course, it's a late phase of COVID at this point, so it's not like people are dying left and right, but people are getting sick with it, and there is another surge going on, as I say this, in the United States and some other places, so it's not completely surprising. We're just tracking with the rest of the region, but it has been noticed, and we have had all the symptoms, and we've had a doctor look at us. We know we've got a viral thing, so we think that's what's going on. I am, for those following, feeling quite a bit better. I'm not hacking anywhere near like I was. I'm not completely better by any stretch, but I've been getting lots of sleep. I've been getting lots of tea and lots of fluids. I'm no longer on like cough medication or anything. Liesel is still on that. She still has a cough, but she's not as bad. Luciana's doing pretty good, doing pretty well. My wife is basically over it. So we're doing pretty well, but we think that's really had us under the weather for a while, for a month. We think we were exposed before I went to Bolivia. So if you look at those episodes, like, oh, okay, that's been quite a while. That's been going on. So that's been holding us back. I'm really hoping to get more Nicaragua travel. We're talking about getting a second car. We do so much stuff. A lot of it's for the show. Having a second vehicle will make a big difference in getting out there. So those are some of the things we have going on in 2024. I'm going to be trying very hard to expand not just this, but some of the other channels. One of the reasons we're getting the new camera, mostly I'm getting the new camera because I want one, but beyond that, we're getting the one new camera that just arrived specifically so we can use a lot of that for recording events here. So you're going to see, hopefully, a really large increase on the shows that we do for Nicaragua. For those of you who want to explore the Scott Allen Miller ecosystem of shows, and you're not getting enough of me here, which is hard to believe, but just in case you're not, and going back to old episodes is not keeping you satiated, then you may want to consider looking at one of our other channels. I have 3 channels that don't involve me, so if you like the kind of content we're doing, but you don't want to listen to me talk all the time, come on, who wants that? There's a reason why those shows aren't growing very fast. But if you do want more Nicaragua content without me, you can check out Nicaragua 360, which we use a 360 camera and just show scenes of Nicaragua all over the place, events with this complete immersive experience. And if you have a VR headset, you can watch on there and just move your head around. But even if you're on a phone or TV, you can look in all directions. It's really interesting and a different way to see the country, and a really good way to experience actually being here in a completely different format than this. When we do walkarounds and stuff with this, it's easy to like really look at a house, but to get a feel for being in a place, Nicaragua 360 is way better for that. We have Nicaragua. That is our show where we do live events. You're going to see that one explode when we were able to really get a good camera in there and get long form, higher quality videos all in one go. It's going to make my life so much easier. It's going to up the quality of that a lot. And everyone's asking for us to get out and do that. So that is high on the list of things coming up to do for 2024 growth of the channels. But you guys can go subscribe now and check out some of the videos that are there. And it'll be good to see that so you can compare it to what you're going to be getting in the future. And of course, Drive Warp, which I've been doing for years, has content from all over. But right now, typically I make content here in Nicaragua, and that is just my camera pointed out the front of my car, and you can see the world by road, which is actually a really interesting way to see different places and see how they connect. You get to see a lot bigger areas of the country all at once than we can do on the other channels. And I think it's a good way to experience the country wherever we're traveling all at once. If I do the South America trip, hopefully no problem there, then we're going to be doing Drive Warp from there and going all over South America by car. That will be incredibly interesting in addition to our normal content. And of course, I have lots of channels that are a little bit more fringe. Take Flight with Scott, which we list on the show pretty often, has some of my old format videos. We're not putting a lot of stuff there, but I love when people go and subscribe and show it some love. That's great too. It's about 10 episodes there now. I've got a goal to get to about 14 to wrap up some stuff I'm doing, and then I'm going to decide how I'm going to use that channel in the future. But it gives me a place to have an outlet for some travel shows that really don't fit with anything else. So a lot of the stuff that's there is Greece, Italy, France, that kind of stuff. And then I have my channels for other things. I mentioned earlier, I have Sam IT, which is my original big channel where we do talk about technology and business and that kind of stuff. The kind of things that I wrote in my book is Linux administration best practices, so it fits very much into that. And by the way, thank you so much for everyone who's been buying my book. I know that this is the channel that people are buying from, and since we started talking about it on here, we've gone from selling a book once in a while to consistently every few days people are buying a book, which is not a huge New York Times bestseller kind of list of numbers, but it's solid sales of the book. That's amazing. Thank you, everyone. Like that, it's not paying any bills or anything, but it has made me, I mean, just doing a book makes you feel fantastic. I have it sitting on my shelf. I can show it to people. Like, I have from a real publisher, from a really famous publisher. So that's fantastic. Did it pay for my time? Absolutely not. It was a complete waste of time from a money perspective, but it feels really good. And of course, it's good for work to be able to say, well, we wrote a book here, you can see it. But thank you so much, because I know you guys are driving a lot of those sales. So that's amazing. And so that channel is really about that kind of material, and I need to get a lot more focus on that. Of course, I've been away way too long, just so many things going on. And I have the Camera Cafe with Scott, where I just talk about cameras and stuff, because as you know, I love that stuff, and that's been doing really well. I got to focus on that some. 2 completely different channels with completely different content, but it gives me an outlet. I love this type of content making, and so it lets me really explore what I want to do without having to talk about Nicaragua or travel all the time, which absolutely I love talking about. Not going to go anywhere, going to keep making this, but it lets me expand in those ways. And those are kind of the main channels that we have. I have a lot of like little fringe ones, and for those of you who really want to see just some extra raw footage, and I really appreciate that this has been going on. I'm going to talk about it again on another episode, but this is the Scott Allen Miller vlog. There is another channel, it's just my name, Scott Allen Miller. It's easy to find. It's got a really cool caricature of my face. Thanks to Valentina for making that a number of years ago. That channel is some of my really old just travel clips. There is some interesting stuff on there if you want to see me talking about like getting peanut butter in Europe and Romania, you know, almost 10 years ago. Like there's some cool stuff. I used a GoPro 4 way back when. So it's not that there's no good content on there, but it's few and far between. But what I use it for now is I take raw footage from, say, a concert or a event, something that doesn't fit anywhere in my other channels, but I want the content to continue to exist. I slap it together and put it on there. And it's actually proven to be kind of popular because you can do things like go see a parade or a concert or the epicos, things like that, and just raw footage of them. So it tends to be longer format. It's not heavily edited, but you can see a lot of the things you wouldn't see here. We often edit these shows more, you might be surprised, but we edit it kind of tightly, especially with stuff like that, so you don't see that much of what's going on because what would you see? But having that raw footage there, if you really just want to go experience a parade for an hour or whatever, you can do so. And of course, that gives you a completely different feel of being in Nicaragua because you're seeing everything, not just the interesting bits that we clipped out. So it's more like you're actually there. So anyone who wants to go support that, that would be fantastic. That channel is right. It was never intended to be anything, but the epicos on there are so popular that we're right on the verge of monetizing, even though it's not a channel we put any focus on or have anything going on. The only thing we're missing is a number of subscribers. We have to get up to that point. So if anyone would like to go there and just hit subscribe, watch a few videos, see if there's anything interesting, that would help a lot. We've got enough views and time to monetize. We're just missing the subscribers at this point, and I'm getting regular subscribers from the number of additional views, and we mentioned this on the shorts, and that's increasing as well. So that's what we have going on. That is the plans. That is how you can connect with us this year. Thanks so much for being part of the Scott Allen Miller vlog. Live in my GoPro box family in 2023. It has been an amazing ride. I'm so happy for how this has grown this year. And for those who worry that I'm stressing out and a YouTuber who's on the verge of a breakdown from all the work that we're doing, of course I am. No, I'm just kidding. This has become just part of my daily routine. I've been doing daily blogging, whether video or writing, for more than 4 years. I'm actually, this will be my 25-year mark this year. And so this is such a pattern of my life. 25 years of this, I am not even thinking of this as part of my workload. It's just something I have to do every day. And so it's been, I think it's very different for me than for most people. And that's what lets me do the daily show versus a more weekly thing or irregular thing. So I have every intent that this show is going to continue for a long time. We're going to keep expanding the content and doing more and more interesting things. Let me know what stuff you're looking for. If you want to help support the show, of course, buy me a coffee at the links that show up. Check out the show notes. As always, let people know about the show. Post on social media. Thank you for being a part of the family. Happy New Year, and I will see all of you tomorrow.